Julie Melinek wanted to start her career as a medical examiner in a big city. New York or Los Angeles were the best options for her, she thought. If you want to learn forensic pathology, take a shift in New York City, her chief resident told her. There, you will find all kinds of cool ways to die. And so it was. Melinek began her forensic career in September 1999 in The Pit, which is the chilling name given to the autopsy room where she started practicing. Years later, in 2014, she would publish a book of her memories called Working Steve, 2 years, 262 bodies and the making of a medical examiner, in which she recounts the lurid cases of which she was witness. But whenever someone asks her, what's the worst case she's ever seen, she responds with, you don't want to know that. At the insistence of the curious, Melinek always answers, the worst nightmares I've ever suffered working as a forensic started after carrying out the Sean Doyle's autopsy. To tell today's macabre story, we have to go back to the end of the 19th century, specifically to the year 1876, in the city of Lockport, located in Nicaragua County, in the state of New York. At that time, houses relied mainly on wood or coal as a heat source during the harsh winters, either with fireplaces or stoves. The problem was that with this technology, only one room of the house or apartment could be heated, as well as being quite dangerous systems, due to the ease which with the fire could spread. At that time, steam-based heating already existed, but its cost, its maintenance, and its size made it a great impediment for individuals. That's how a mechanical engineer named Bertzel Holly came up with a plan to bring steam heating to Lockport homes. The system devised by Holly consisted of having a large steam engine in a specific place and then connecting it to the building externally through pipes. To test his idea, Holly connected a boiler located 150 meters away through pipes that he installed throughout his house. Upon verifying the effectiveness of his experiment, Holly decided to found a company called the Holly Steam Combination Company, whose mission would be to bring steam heating to as many homes as possible. A few months later, Holly would have dug hundreds of tunnels and trenches throughout Lockport, creating the first district steam heating system. By 1882, the engineer had registered more than 50 patents stemming from his talent and diligence in the design of large-scale steam engines and boilers. In addition to that, he also developed a steam meter, and his system became so popular that it spread throughout the United States. It was at that moment that Wallace C. Andrews, a businessman who had been dedicated to the mining business, decided to take the steam to the metropolis of Manhattan. In 1879, he founded the Steam Heating and Power Company of New York, a company that the following year would absorb another company called New York Steam Company, a union that would retain the last of the two names. And in 1881, with the invaluable help of an engineer named Charles E. Emery, the city was divided into 10 potential districts, in which lots and plots were acquired to build huge steam factories. The first central heating plant was successfully completed that same year and included 48 boilers and 70-meter-high chimneys. On March 3, 1882, the company was able to provide its services to its first clients, and by the year 1886, they already had 350 users and 8 kilometers of pipes throughout the city. But the steam business exceeded all expectations during the winter of 1888. At the beginning of March, a huge snowstorm hit the city with hurricane-force winds, and almost 2 meters of snow accumulated on its streets. At that moment, people realized the power of steam, as the supply of coal was cut off and more than 400 people froze to death. This tragedy occurred at the same time that the users of the New York Steam Company enjoyed their heating systems without interruption. From then on, the city of New York opted for this heating system like no other city had done before or since. Steam and technological advances in the metallurgical industry, together with the invention of the elevator, allowed the architects of the Big Apple to build the skyscrapers that today create the iconic New York skyline. And at this moment, the city has more than 168 kilometers of steam pipe that supply almost 2,000 buildings. Today, centralized steam systems have very diverse uses. Restaurants use them to run their industrial dishwashers, laundries their large load washers, and hospitals and museums use them to maintain a controlled level of humidity in rooms, and galleries that help preserve both patients and works of art. Most impressive, but if we look at the extent to which New York has bet on this technology, we will discover that the city has the largest centralized steam system in the world, which surpasses even the next 9 systems in order of size combined. but not all are advantages when it comes to steam, since its enormous power deserves an adequate dose of respect, and even fear on our part. At the end, it is a physical process that generates great amounts of pressure and heat. And in fact, the district steam heating systems has left its fair share of collateral victims and curious events over the years. But of all the problems that steam causes, without a doubt, the most spectacular ones are those that are generated when said pipes break. The victims that these accidents have left throughout history are not few, and the images are certainly spectacular. One of these accidents is the centerpiece of our story today. Sean Doyle was a bartender at a restaurant in the lower Manhattan area. That day of Christmas Eve, he went to work like any other day, as it was the eve of a holiday, and also Friday. His turn was chaos. Beers, cocktails, and soft drinks flew from his hands and passed into the hands of the waiters at a frantic speed. He worked at such pace that he lost track of time. Suddenly, his partner from the next shift appeared to take over from him. Happy and encouraged, Sean changed his clothes and left the bar to meet a good friend of his named Michael Wright. They had decided that they would go have a few drinks and a good time. In addition to Michael that night, his partner was also with them, so the three of them advanced through the bustling streets of the city in search of the bars that would attend that night. According to Detective Ellen Kennett, who was in charge of the case, Wright thought Doyle was insinuating on his partner and he got angry. "He's a big guy," she said. And soon after, the screaming turned into pushing, although Wright's girlfriend claimed that they were just joking. Shortly thereafter, Wright described the altercation to the police as a joke. The detective, however, had listened to the recording of the emergency call and knew that it was not a game. Apparently, a neighbor in the area contacted the police because she was witnessing an altercation in the street. "Someone is getting beaten up down there." He also stated that the man was shouting, "No, please, don't break my legs." Other witnesses told the police they saw a big guy beating a little guy. "I saw it all. He threw the guy down the hole, but said hole was an open manhole covered by a plastic chimney to vent the steam from a broken pipe while the company carried out repairs. The hole was a 5.5 meters drop to boiling water at the bottom of the tunnel. The supervisor of the repair company in charge of the work confirmed that in the hole where Sean Doyle fell, the temperature was around 150 Celsius degrees. Police and emergency crews were quick to arrive, but were unable to get Doyle out, as no one could get close without being boiled alive. So they had to wait for the engineers to turn off the steam supply, and even once it was turned off, it was still too dangerous to send the rescue team into the tunnel. According to the emergency teams, Doyle was still alive when they arrived at the scene. Through the steam rising from the tunnel, they could see him screaming uncontrollably as he clung to the walls in a futile attempt to get out of that hell. It took 4 hours to recover the body. The firefighters took the body's temperature before bagging it, as is normal in the death by hyperthermia protocol. The thermometer read 50 degrees Celsius, and that temperature was what was written in the report. But the reality is that the thermometer only reached a maximum of 50 Celsius degrees on its meter, so we cannot know what temperature the body was really at. When Julie Melinek started the autopsy, she couldn't believe what she was witnessing. His skin was leathery to the touch, twisted and covered in droplets of crystal clear water. It was peeling off his hands, feet, shoulders and legs. His lips were charred, and his eyes were white from the vapor. His entire body was crimson red. Doyle was found with his knees bent and his hip pushed in. This is known as a boxing stance. High temperatures cause larger muscles to contract, arms and legs to bend, and can even break bones in the same way a steak shrinks when cooked. But none of Doyle's bones were broken, despite the beating and despite the fall. He had no bleeding and no head injury. It was not pleasant to proceed with the autopsy, knowing that the man was awake when he suffered those terrible burns. She couldn't tell if he had bruises, as the tissues were completely boiled over. She couldn't find any abrasions either, since his skin had come off completely. His liver was not bloody or red, not soft and pale. It was hard and brown, and so were his heart, kidneys, spleen, and other viscera. His brain was completely scalded. The veins and arteries turned into sausages. Burns usually kill the nerve ending in the skin, but because Doyle suffered the steam burn, the nerve tissue was not affected. The pain must have been brutal and excruciating. When inspecting his lungs, she found them filled with liquid, and as the heat began to damage them, an edematous foam had filled them up. That, combined with the heat that the flesh received from his airways, must have caused them to expand, slowly suffocating him. Simultaneously, the physiological stress to the intense heat had increased his blood pressure and heart rate. Asphyxia, cardiac arrest, or hyperthermic cerebral edema were likely the immediate cause of death. Any one of the three could have killed them, and the physical evidence indicated that the three occurred at the same time. When she finished the autopsy, she claimed it was a homicide and not an accident. The fact that they had physical contact when Doyle fell down the sewer made it a death at the hands of another. That implied murder, even if it was unintentional, since it takes a conscious decision to throw someone down the hole. The worst nightmares Melinek experienced in her 2 years working in the hole began after performing the autopsy on Sean Doyle. In her dreams, the darkness embraced her, and all she could hear was Doyle's desperate screams, a sound so wild it was barely human. In her dream, she found herself floating over an infinite pit full of darkness, and the person inside yelled at her to get him out, but she could never see it because of the steam emanating from the hole. When she tried to get closer to the hole, the heat would intensify, along with the screams of pain, and as if their minds were connected, Melinek understood with great precision the ordeal that Doyle was going through, every inch of her skin burning, every ounce of her flesh being steamed. There was nothing she could do, and the dream kept recurring for several weeks. Even to this day, and in a less intense way, she still sees the hole from time to time during the dark nights and early mornings, far away, dwarfed, the muffled and distant screams, but the chill always comes when she feels the halo of steam surrounding her.